Have you ever watched one of those old movies where they're like, you must find him and kill him? Like James Bond, right? They're always looking for James Bond and then they have to kill him. So, this is basically what your immune system is trying to do. Now, we can break it down into some steps. The first one we want to do is we want to sort of keep the enemy from entering the area that we're trying to protect. So, we want to keep the bad stuff out. The second thing that we want to do is we want to recognize the bad stuff, which means that we want to tell the difference between the bad things and the good things. Basically, how do we recognize a pathogen from ourselves? And then the last thing we want to do is respond to that pathogen. So what are we going to do to address the problem? I want to start with this idea of keeping bad stuff out. So this is something that is commonly done by a couple different parts of your body. One of those is your skin. Guess what? Your skin has hydrophobic molecules in it. It's really good at keeping things out. But of course, if you get a cut, that cut can get infected. You also have mucus, which I think is one of the words that people hate to hear the most in A&P, and we have to talk about it a lot. But basically, mucus can surround pathogens and cause them to come out. So basically, it washes those pathogens out of your system. This is why when you have a cold, that your nose is running so much. Your body is just trying to get rid of pathogens that are inside of it by just enveloping them in snot and making it come out your nose. You also have tears. Tears are antibacterial and antimicrobial. They're going to wash pathogens out of your ears. If we look at the stomach has in it acid. Acid is great at killing things. All of these different scenarios, these don't care what kind of pathogen it is. They're going to do the same thing regardless. So what we call this is these will all be parts of something called innate immunity. Innate immunity does not adapt to the virus strain. It just kind of does the same thing it would do regardless. Now, in this innate response, we have a couple other things that you might not think of. We have fever. And what fever does is it basically sort of supercharges the immune cells for a period of time. And if you get the body warm enough, the pathogens don't do quite as well. There's also inflammation. And what inflammation is it's a sudden increase in blood flow to an area. This brings more white blood cells to the party, and it helps them to fight off the infection. So while all these things may seem kind of annoying, it's basically your body's way of kind of fighting off the infection regardless of what it is. It could be bacterial, it could be viral. We don't care. The body is going to fight it off. And in the case of these first ones that I mentioned, it's going to fight it off where that infection starts. Once we talk about recognizing a pathogen, you might think, well, how are you going to recognize a pathogen? And how are you going to know, like, the infected cell from your cell? Well, on the cell membrane, there are going to be little, proteoglycans, basically, or glycoproteins. These glycoproteins are like little cellular name tags. And these little cellular name tags say, hey, that cell is my cell because it's got my little name tags on it saying, hello, I am Cindy's cell. But this cell here, this is not my cell. And so my body will be able to sense that by those surface receptors, and it will sort of flag those things and start to attack them. And we'll talk about how that happens because that's really part of the response. Before getting into this response, we really have to talk about the different cell types and what each kind of cell does, because that's how it responds to this. Just know that these immune cells have some sort of surface receptor that enables them to recognize the pathogen Sometimes this recognition is helped by another cell, which will put a little molecular flag on the outside of the pathogen. And sometimes they actually have receptors that are really good at recognizing these pathogens. Suffice it to say, if a pathogen is really good at hiding from your immune system, you'll be sick for a lot longer.